I'm Amil Niazi sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. So there are a few constants in life, and one of those is that when the summer ends, fall TV can begin. So today we are talking about what is coming to your small screen. Eric Deggans is here, Kathryn VanArendonk is here, and Rachel Ho is here. Welcome back to Commotion.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, let's get to the most anticipated show, I think it's fair to say, which is The Paper. It's a spin-off of The Office. Here's a clip.
Adelola, you're pointing, and everyone's nodding, and I am agreeing. And Barry, you stand up. I think everyone's nodding now. We're all nodding at Barry, yes. Now, Detrick, you're going to jump out of your chair with enthusiasm. You're going to high-five Oscar. Go, yes, and oh, fantastic, yes. Fantastic. And we're clapping, and we're thumbs-upping.
Actually, my kids watched that clip and they really liked it, and I was surprised because I figured like the layers of understanding you'd have to have weren't there. But Kathryn, just briefly tell us what's the premise of this show?
Right. So I think it actually is one of my preferred options for a spin-off premise, which is not that you take a minor character really and you're like, what's that guy's whole backstory in life? This is not a Joey version of The Office. This is a sort of similar premise, similar idea where you have a workplace and a boss that is floundering or ridiculous or absurd in some ways, and then you have other people who are competent, and then it also has the same mockumentary style. The idea is that it is the same mockumentary crew that was filming all of the actions at Dunder Mifflin. They have moved on to a new subject, and that subject in this case is a small town newspaper in Ohio. And I don't know if you've heard about journalism lately, but things are rough for them.
Yeah.
And so the action of the show is that same kind of workplace comedy awkwardness, but it is now located in this very different kind of workspace, which I think is both fascinating and has all of these opportunities, but then also has elements of a kind of sincerity that The Office did not begin with and certainly did not locate in its themes that I do think is really interesting about what The Paper is wrestling with.
I mean, I'm glad you said it's not like a Joey. That's always good to hear, because I sort of feel like, you know, the mockumentary wears thin sometimes, but they keep making them, so maybe I'm wrong. Eric, you do see this as landing a little bit differently than say The Office. Why do you think that?
Most definitely. Well, first of all, I want to say this is incredibly retro. I love this. Fall TV
I
being
know,
a thing
right?
again. It's like
Thank God we're still making TV.
Exactly, putting stuff on whenever they want. I'm digging the fall TV thing, and I'm digging that we're talking about a spinoff of The Office. And I will remind you that Better Call Saul was also a spinoff that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
But
true.
At any rate, what I like about The Paper and what's interesting about The Paper is that we've seen the protagonists of these office-like stories get less and less mean as we get new iterations. So like the character that Ricky Gervais played at the center of the British Office was bumbling, but there was a little bit of meanness to that character
Yeah.
that kind of suited Ricky Gervais and suited British humor. And then when we came to America, he was played by Steve Carell, who's much more charismatic and much less mean-spirited. So he came across as like a doofus who would do hurtful things or terrible things like by accident.
Yeah.
And now we have a character who is even less so, that kind of thing. The lead character on this show is a well-meaning guy who really wants to try and bring some original reporting to this shell of a newspaper. And he may do, things that are kind of dumb, but he doesn't seem to be doing, at least in the episodes I saw, anything that's even accidentally mean. He's really well-intentioned, and he's thwarted by this. Newspapers nowadays, especially small newspapers, are incredibly challenged. And, if you're a journalist and you've worked in the business at all, it's going to hurt your heart to watch this because there's so much about the humor that is on point about the challenges that we're facing. But they do a great job. And I think the mockumentary style, it's like, it's like a multi-camera sitcom. It's just a style now, and if you're telling a great story, it can help elevate that style because the camera moves can tell jokes. You have somebody say something and then you shift the camera to somebody who's reacting, and all of a sudden, where you put the camera and how you do close-ups and who's in the background and who's in the foreground, that becomes part of the humor in a way that you can't really do with many other formats.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder why they chose the newspaper. You kind of wonder if it says something about what people are interested in or what people are just not thinking about. And I'm worried that that choosing a newspaper, it does not bode well for the future.
I hate to say, I think they wanted to focus on a failing American institution.
Yes.
And so they chose newspapers.
Like paper is as relevant to people's lives as newspapers, apparently, and that is
the
scary.
buggy whip.
Right? Rachel, I know you're a big fan of The Office. How are you liking this new spinoff?
I loved it. I crushed through all 10 episodes. I had so much to do, but I didn't care. I was really into it and I just went right for it. Kind of like Eric and Kathryn are saying, it's taking a different way of approaching the spinoff. Like there are connections to The Office for sure. But it's a different satire. I think The Office was definitely satirical about office politics, about, the mundane nature of a 9 to 5 and I think that's why it did so well in the way that it did in the time that it did. But now we're a bit interested in different things, and it is a failing industry, unfortunately. It looks at journalism as a profession, but it also looks at what's at stake of that profession and the fact that small newspapers are dying, that good reporting is unfortunately kind of going away now. But what I really appreciate about the paper, though, is that it's not a carbon copy of The Office. And I think that that's really important. They're not trying to just redraw, here's the Jim and Pam of this series, here's the Dwight of this series, here's the Phyllis of this series. They don't do that. Donald Gleason, he plays Ned Sampson, who is kind of our new Michael Scott. And, again, like Eric and Kathryn said, he's not Michael Scott. He is competent. He is nice. He's dopey, definitely. But he's not a Michael Scott. And I think that by doing that, it gives all the actors an opportunity to actually make a mark in the show and make a character their own without feeling burdened by who was the Jim. Like I'm now the new Jim, so I got to play the Jim. So I think in that sense, it works really, really well. And I mean, Greg Daniels is the creator of this. You never count him out. He's made pretty much everything that's been good on television. He's had some hand in it, I'm sure of.
Let's talk a bit about network TV. I mean, it feels like just yesterday we were saying, okay, streaming is replacing television. You don't need to worry about seasons anymore. You can watch it whenever you want. Kathryn, what happened to the promise of streaming, and is network TV back?
I would love for network TV to be back. Although I will say the offerings of brand new shows this season are leaving something to be desired.
Yeah.
There are some really important and like exciting big returning shows. Abbott is coming back with an episode where they set it at a Phillies game, which is not a bottle episode, by the way. And so there is, and Tracker is like surprisingly like the biggest show on television. And Matlock and Elsbeth are these really great, exciting,
I love
fun
Elsbeth.
network shows. Oh my God,
It's so good.
Elsbeth. I was catching up on it over the summer, and I was like, why was I not writing about this show every single week? But speaking of spinoffs, like all of the dramas, there's very few brand new dramas this season, and I think they're all spinoffs, or nearly all of them are spinoffs. One is a spinoff of a show called Fire Country, and this one's called Sheriff Country, which is one of the silliest titles for a new TV show I have ever heard in my life.
A country full of sheriffs.
And I think probably some of this is still strike related.
Yeah.
That is like we're getting the long tail production results. I think there is political anxiety about what kinds of new dramas are going to play well in the current. I think there is economic headwinds in a number. I don't know if anyone's heard about, like, Paramount is everyone is anxious.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of what's happening. But it is frustrating to look at what the new offerings are, particularly given how much appetite I think there is for new network shows.
Yeah, that's
I
so.
have an idea
Yeah.
about what might be happening.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I've always said that new media doesn't destroy old media, it just forces it to change. So, what we're seeing is broadcast and cable redefining itself because it's moving out of the main spotlight for TV viewers and kind of figuring out its role in a universe where streaming is the future of television. I
Right.
think that's, unavoidable now. But what has happened this fall, and I noticed it in the upfronts. The upfronts are this situation in May where a lot of the major TV providers start to sell their advertising early for this fall, so they have to reveal what they're going to be doing. Particularly the networks, they have to say what their new shows are going to be because they're trying to get advertisers to buy ads in advance for a discount. And what we saw there was that a lot of the networks were putting off their big scripted series until January or February. There was a sense, and it's odd for somebody if you've been covering or watching the TV industry for a while. It used to be the flip side. In the fall was when you would debut the big, scripted TV shows because that's when everybody's paying attention. That's when all the magazines were doing their fall TV previews. All the newspapers were doing everything. So you wanted to debut your big shows then. Now there's a sense that there is a little more room for people to pay attention after the new year. In January and February. So Fox, for example, delayed most of its big shows until after the start of 2026.
Okay.
One exception is Doc, the show that they have, a medical drama that seemed to be doing pretty well. I can't let this segment go without mentioning the CW is going to welcome Law and Order Toronto Criminal Intent. Come on. I love the Law and Order franchise, and I love the way that it's been sort of exported to other countries. I really liked Law and Order UK, for example. I have not yet seen Toronto Criminal Intent. I have bugged them for screeners, and they have not sent them. CW, get on it. But I'm excited. You guys have already seen it in Canada.
We've seen it, yeah.
But we haven't here in America. It's going to debut on the CW. So that's the one I wanted to talk to y'all about.
Oh, I mean, you know what? It will grow on you. I think it will hopefully grow on you. That's the nicest thing I can say about it. And
Ouch.
I
Wow.
love Law and Order. I really do. I give it a chance because I like the storylines because it feels very fresh in terms of like ripped from the headlines. Like it's very new headlines. So Eric, saying that, and then Kathryn, listening to you talk about the kind of political perhaps undercurrent for some of these. I was looking at the fall lineup and thinking there's so much dad content here. And you know what I mean when I say like
Sure
dad
do.
content,
Hey, wait
right?
a minute.
No, we all
I
know.
resemble that remark.
I happen to love, I love Bosch, for example. So I am the queen of dad content, but I just was listening to Kathryn say that and going, oh, is that what's happening here? It's like, we're making TV for a certain type of person, maybe, Rachel?
Well,
or Kathryn, yeah. But I would
just
love
wanna
to hear
say,
your reaction.
I wrote this thing about dad TV, maybe it was last year, and the thing that I really was trying to figure out about it is that like what dad TV is now. And I do think there is this element of dad TV that is fundamentally about believing that institutions can work.
Yeah.
Usually the actual protagonist is like, I don't actually have to follow those rules, but I am ultimately working in support of this institution, whether or not that institution is like justice or like, democracy or something. And so I think there is something comforting about the idea of a dad TV where it's like, I'm an outlaw who breaks all the rules and none of it applies to me, except for everyone else. I do think this institution is good and important and worth saving.
Yes, no, 100%.
I might have to disagree with you on that because I think Reacher, for example, one of the best examples of dad TV is the exact opposite of that.
But he is a bit of an outlaw, isn't he?
He is
Yeah,
not
he is.
invested. And
He
in
is an
fact,
outlaw.
he rejects his past as a military person and goes off.
We can get into it on Reacher.
I know. I was just going to say, we could
I
really
love
dive
Reacher.
into
Yeah.
Reacher here. Perhaps we will in another program.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
To be continued.
To
Put
be
a pin in it.
continued, 100%. Rachel, you do, and it's hard to parse out because in Canada we're such like gluttonous consumers of American content, but you do have some good CanCon picks you wanted to talk about.
Unfortunately, they're not technically. Well, the one is a network one. The other one's going to be on streaming, which is on Netflix, and it's Wayward, which is Mae Martin has a new
Oh,
series. It's
yes.
got
Love Mae
Sarah
Martin.
Gaddens in it. It's incredible. I love it. I've been watching. I'm probably about halfway through the season. I think it's really tremendous. It's great for, I think, it also as we're approaching October for kind of spooky season for people. So I think it's a good one. But the other one that I really want to talk about was The Unstoppable Jenny Garcia, which I was able to catch a couple episodes of it. It's definitely a show that it's kind of on the other side of the dad content. This is a show that's meant for kids. It's meant for families. I was really moved by it though. So it's about, a young girl. She's a preteen, living her best preteen life, doing her thing. And then she gets diagnosed with cancer. And then obviously that kind of upends everything for her and her family. The reason that I like it so much is that I think a show like this is very necessary in a landscape filled with reachers and law and orders where you kind of give kids a language to express something or to understand something that is incredibly tragic, incredibly difficult to go through. I mean, at any age, cancer is not an easy topic to deal with.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about a series like this, it's not just for the kids who unfortunately get diagnosed with cancer, but for their families, their classmates, their siblings to watch something like this. I think it actually serves a greater purpose in the just TV movie landscape of the whole media landscape. I think a show like this is really necessary. I'm glad that CBC has done it. It's all coming out. I think on Friday, all the episodes are going to be out. And so, yeah, I think especially for families, especially for parents, if you have young kids, it's definitely one worthwhile to check out.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I would love to sit and just chat about fall TV streaming versus network forever, but I want to make sure that we talk about one of the shows that people are most excited about, and that is Stranger Things. Let's listen to a clip.
Wherever this blood leads, I need you to fight one last time. Let's end this, kid.
Okay. I mean, okay, Kathryn, I have to admit I tapped out around season 3, but I know that this is the show that kind of changed the conversation about streaming versus network, right? For a lot of people, it was it showed what streaming could really do. So there's a lot of eyeballs on this final season. Kathryn, what do they need to do to really put a good kind of bow on the Stranger Things legacy?
I think it really wants to hit some kind of satisfying 80s teen movie ending beat. I think that has been where it is best in the pocket. And it's going to be challenging given that its young protagonists are no longer that young, and that it is dealing with this incredibly dilated time where it is just, we've stretched our relationships with these people for so long, and that it is really, I like a lot of the later Stranger Things seasons, but because each episode has become this like behemoth thing, it's really hard to hit the kind of pacing notes that are what give you that satisfying feeling at the end of something like this. Which is not to say that I'm counting out the end of Stranger Things, but that I am very curious what it's going to look like for them to try to both increase the kind of sense of legendary, and I mean that in a kind of legendary, epic monster feeling without sacrificing the small character beats that I think are the things that people are actually connected to for this show.
Eric, what do you want to see happen on this show? Because it's very hard to land the plane when you're talking about something that has each season has felt like almost the series could end after season 1 or season 2. So what do you want to see happen here?
Well, what I want to see happen is a story that ends in a way that recontextualizes everything we've seen before. That's what great endings really do. That's a tall order.
Yeah.
I would settle for an ending that focuses us on the core characters again, because I think the show got a little distracted, bringing in new characters, bringing in more expansive environments. There are other than super diehards. Can anybody even tell you what the plot of the last season was? It would be nice to see the show sort of focus on what made it special in the first place. I think one of the problems that it has, a show that's set in the past, for example, is not about that time. It's about how we feel about that time now.
Hmm.
And so we kind of got a lot of the feels out in the first couple of seasons. And I think that's one reason why people have kind of drifted away from the show. It's not speaking to them in the way that it spoke to them in the first couple of seasons, because it had really strong statements to make about nostalgia and how we felt about family back then versus how we feel about family now. And, at the end of this journey, a lot of what that show has been trying to say has been said and said and said. And now the question is, can they come up with something new to say that puts it all in perspective and ends it in a satisfying way and ultimately, please, kill this bad guy.
I
Please.
know, I know. How many ways can it come back? You're just like, oh God, just kill
No
the whole
more.
town already. Just get it over with.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
Rachel, quickly, we talked a lot about nostalgia and how the show really kind of ushered in that era. Is the end of Stranger Things the end of our obsession with a certain kind of nostalgia?
I don't think so. I mean, as long as us millennials and Gen X people are around, I
Yeah.
think nostalgia will always be a thing because we cling to our childhoods like no tomorrow, I
Yeah.
think. But the fact is the 80s and the 90s were the last couple decades that we had where just society generally, collectively, we were unplugged. We were not attached to our phones. Maybe people argue that we were attached to the television. That could have been one argument then. But certainly it was very different, and technology has moved exponentially, like in terms of progress from the 80s to today in a way that I don't think we've ever really seen with technological progress before. So, I as we keep going further and further down that kind of digital rabbit hole, we're only going to want to go back to a quote unquote simpler time,
Yeah.
even more so. And that's not just our generations, it is going to be the younger ones as well who are going to have some fascination with it. And also, don't discount how much more interesting like slasher movies are, detective thrillers are when you don't have a fully charged cell phone or like a
Yeah.
strong internet connection. Storytelling is no, I won't say it's more interesting, but there's a different stripe to it that I don't think you quite get with things set in contemporary times. So I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, Kathryn mentioned, half of the shows in the new lineup are spin-offs. We want to keep watching
Yeah.
shows about The Office. All the movies that are doing well are basically remnants from our childhood. So yeah, nostalgia's not going anywhere.
No.
Before we go, I do want to just quickly talk about the fact that the Emmys are just a couple Sundays away. There's been a lot of really big shows that people have been excited about. So I just want to hear from each of you very quickly. What shows are you kind of looking at to win big, and who are you rooting for? Kathryn, I'll start with you.
Oh boy. I mean, I have a really stunning ability to forget every single thing about the Emmys between like it is truly like a mind wipe every time.
Yeah.
But I am always curious what's happening with The Bear because it feels like
Yeah.
it is such a like we've decided it's sort of collectively this barometer about like, do we like prestige? What do we want our comedies to be? What are we awarding? It also has gotten into this weird calendar thing. I just think it will always be fascinating to me how we are thinking about like what a comedy is, which is such a loaded category for the Emmys.
Yes, true. Very true. Eric, what about you?
Well, I do think that maybe us critics sort of obsess over what The Bear is more than viewers do. But I do think that this is the year that everybody who votes on awards decides that this idea that The Bear is a comedy is nonsense, and they're going to punish it by not giving
Yeah,
it
I think so too.
by not giving it awards. So this is the year of the studio as comedy goes. I think it's going to be very successful. Hollywood loves to look like it's a good sport about itself, even as it is not. And Seth Rogen has been very adept at sort of mining that. The real question, I think, is Severance versus The White Lotus. Both of them have been nominated for quite a few awards. Severance is a show that I'm still not sure. I feel like a lot of people have heard that it's good. Have they actually watched it?
Yeah.
Do they actually know it? I think that's the real question, and that's one way in which The White Lotus might have the upper hand, is that more people may have actually watched that show. But one of the two of them is going to be the belle of the ball, and the other one is going to be, it was just an honor to be nominated. And so it'll be interesting to see, which ends up where.
Rachel, final word to you.
I agree with Eric. I think the studio more than likely is going to be taking it, but I'm still rooting for Abbott Elementary because I love that show. I think it is well past due that it gets recognized in that specific category. I know it's been, for acting and for writing, it's gotten a lot of recognition there, but I think it's time that it wins and, for the best comedy series, because The Bear was just snagging it up for no reason whatsoever. So with all due respect to Hacks, to studio, I'm rooting for Quinta. I'm rooting for Abbott. I think that it is a tremendous show, and they have been putting out very consistently high quality sitcoms for us to enjoy for however many years now. So I'm with Quinta on this one.
Okay. I mean, great picks. I love the variety here. And we could talk even more about who's watching the Emmys and does anyone care anymore, but we'll be watching. Thank you so much.
TV
all of
nerds
you.
care.
TV nerds care, exactly. Thank you for having this conversation. It was really, really fun chatting with all of you.
Thanks for having us.
So you've been listening to Eric Deggans. He is NPR's TV critic. Kathryn VanArendonk, who is the TV critic for New York Magazine's Vulture site. And Rachel Ho, who is the film editor for Exclaim in Toronto. Commotion's back again tomorrow. I'm Amil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Thanks for listening.